Hi, I'm Alex from Wilkinson Cameras, and today I've got the brand new Fujifilm X-T5. It's definitely not a surprise, a lot of people have already predicted this camera, but what did surprise me is how quickly it arrived after the recent X-H2 and X-H2S launches. I've gone from barely using Fujifilm to reviewing something from them about once a month. The X-T5 features a 40.2 megapixel sensor, Fujifilm's X5 processor, and is aimed at both stills and video shooters, whether enthusiastic or professional, thanks to impressive specifications on both. And of course, this is the design that Fujifilm is most well known for, and X-series fans have been waiting for. It features a backside illuminated, or BSI, X-Trans CMOS 5 HR 40 megapixel sensor, the super fast X processor 5, which we saw debuted in the X-H2S and then again in the X-H2. It's capable of 15 frames per second in mechanical shutter, 20 electronic, has a pixel shift mode capable of producing 160 megapixel images, features up to 7 stops of internal body image stabilization, or IBIS, 6.2 30p 10-bit 422 video with up to 13 stops of dynamic range when using f/log2. It's smaller and lighter than the X-H2, 15% lighter in fact, and retains the classic styling you're used to from the Fujifilm X-T series. It follows on from the X-T4 in Fujifilm's very popular X-T lineup. You might remember from our previous videos that the T stands for traditional, and as such, the X-T5 retains the traditional styling and handling, featuring shutter speed and ISO dials on the top of the camera, as well as the pentaprism style design. We're testing this in black, but as usual, it will be available in a choice of black or silver. The X-T4 was the first in the X-T series to feature 5-axis image stabilization, offered improved video features compared to the X-T3, and a new, more powerful and efficient battery, as well as improved tracking and IAF, up to 15 frames per second mechanical shutter, improved controls for both still and movie mode, a multi-angled LCD screen, and some other minor changes or improvements. It was designed as a sister model to the X-T3 rather than a direct replacement, so there's a lot of X-T3 users with high hopes for this X-T5 and X-T4 users who are hoping for significant upgrades as well. The X-T5 is a more traditional style for the X-T series that you're used to from Fujifilm, but is this an X-H2 in an X-T body, or is there more to it? I know from the comments on our X-H2 review that a lot of you wanted to see some of the more traditional features and were holding out for this model. So does it tick all the boxes? Well, let's find out. Watch this video, but you're probably also going to want to check out the X-H2 and X-H2S reviews that we did earlier this year. If you haven't watched them already, it's definitely worth doing so because I do go through both of those, and I will be mentioning both models throughout. This will be the world's second 40 megapixel APS-C camera, hot off the back of the Fujifilm X-H2. The key differences between the two come in video modes, form factor, and general design and handling. For video, the X-H2 has up to 6.2K 30p as opposed to 8K 30p in the X-H2. However, you've still got a very impressive 6.2K in 422 10-bit, plus there's 4K HQ mode which oversamples 6.2K footage for superior 4K output. This can be used to make the most of a 2x digital zoom function to provide further versatility. It features both f/log and f/log2. f/log2 provides even more dynamic range of around 13 stops. This is great for colour grading, as you'll see from our examples and also in our previous videos. On top of this, if you want to record with a suitable Atomos or Blackmagic external device, doing so will unlock 12-bit Apple ProRes RAW and Blackmagic RAW 2. So despite the design of this camera being distinctly more stills orientated, this is still a very capable video camera. It also features 240p full HD slow motion recording as well. This is just like the X-H2, but significantly less than the 4K 240p you'll find on the X-H2S. The X-T5 also features a red frame when recording and IS boost in video mode as well. This takes the already impressive image stabilization and digitally enhances this for even more stable video footage when on the move. For stills and video, there's up to 7 stops of 5-axis IBIS. X-T3 users who have no in-body image stabilization are going to see massive improvements here, but there's some improvements to the IBIS you'll see on the X-T4 as well. This is the same as you'll find in the X-H2 and X-H2S models. Just like the X-H2, this is capable of 20 frames per second continuous shooting in electronic shutter mode and 15 frames mechanical. A little dive into the specs, however, shows that the X-H2 is going to excel here. The buffer on the X-T5 is far lower. For example, at 20 frames on the X-T5, you've got 168 frames JPEG versus 1000 plus on the X-H2. For uncompressed RAW and JPEG, the specs are showing 23 frames or about 1 second shooting, compared to approximately 11 seconds on the X-H2, and that is a big difference. In practice, it felt like I got a little bit longer than a second, but it does slow down and becomes very intermittent very quickly. You're going to want to consider this if you do want to do fast moving subjects. For autofocus, it's the same intelligent hybrid AF found in the X-H2 and the X-H2S. In the single point AF mode, there's up to 425 selectable AF points. As well as this, there's zone AF, and just like in the X-H2 and X-H2S, the camera can detect animals, birds, cars, bikes, planes and trains. In the X-H2 video, I randomly added the word horses to this list, and I have no idea why. I don't think it has a dedicated horse function. Sure somebody will confirm. The AF in both the X-H2 and the X-T5 isn't quite as fast as the X-H2S, but as in the X-H2 review, I found the autofocus to be excellent regardless. I don't have the exact information on this right now and how it performs, but it would appear to me that it's just as good as the X-H2, the tracking is superb, and the dedicated modes work really, really well. Autofocus tracking and animal AF, etc. all work in stills and video. Low light performance matches that of the X-H2, from 125 to 12800 expandable down to 64 and 51200. Just as with the X-H2, I found the low light capabilities to be very good, with less noise than I would have expected from such a high resolution sensor. No, it's not an all-out low light megastar like the Sony a7S III for example, but it's very good considering it's a 40 megapixel sensor and all the other features you're getting with it as well. Pair it with one of Fujifilm's many fast aperture primes and you're not going to have too many concerns. The camera is noticeably smaller and lighter and features the traditional control dials that you'd expect on an XT camera, including shutter speed and ISO and exposure compensation. But other key differences between this new X-T5 and the X-H2 and S models come with both the viewfinder and LCD screen on the back. The viewfinder on the X-T5 is a 3.69 million dot OLED EVF. It's the same one as is found in the X-T4, but it's noticeably different from the 5.7 million dot OLED EVF you'll find on both the X-H2 and S. It's a good viewfinder, it's comfortable to use, the image is bright and it's large and detailed, but if you were comparing side by side, you can tell the difference between the two, and personally I prefer the one found on the X-H2. The LCD panel on the rear reverts back to a three-way tilt, which X-T3 users will be familiar with. The X-T4 did away with this and moved to a fully articulated screen, which is what you'll also find on the X-H2 and X-H2S. This is one reason why videographers will probably look more towards the X-H2 or X-H2S. In fact, dedicated videographers are really going to look more towards the X-H2S thanks to the 6K 30p on offer there, but with massively improved rolling shutter when compared to this or the X-H2. That's because of the sensor that's used. This feels supremely well built, as do the X-H2 and S. Plus the mechanical shutter on the X-T5 guarantees 500,000 actuations, and so you can be confident that this is going to last. It's very tactile thanks to the rubberized coating on the outside. There's a small grip on the back and the grip on the front is shaped nicely. The grip is deeper than on the X-T3, which I think is a massive design improvement. I do personally think I prefer the grip and the feel of the X-H2 in my hands. My partner said the same when he tried this as well. He's not stopped asking me when I'm going to get the X-H2 again and was excited when I said that this one was similar. But one of the things he immediately said was how he preferred the feel and the grip on the X-H2.
Hello.
This isn't going to be an issue for existing XT users at all. But if you're on the fence between the traditional style of the X-T5 versus the modern mirrorless style of the X-H2, it's certainly worth visiting a local camera store to really compare them. Our store's link is in the comments. On top of the camera, we have the dials XT series users will be familiar with ISO on the top left, shutter speed and exposure compensation to the right. Below the ISO dial is a sub-dial which allows you to change the drive mode from single shot to continuous low, high, bracketing modes, advanced filters and panorama options. The bracketing mode can be set in the main menu and includes exposure, ISO, film simulation, white balance and focus bracketing. HDR mode can also be set in the main menu, choosing from auto, 200%, 400%, 800% and 800% plus. Shutter speed dial, you'll find a dedicated still or movie switch. I love this feature, which I think we first saw in the X-T4. It's brilliant. It means you can still access dedicated stills or video settings depending on the mode you're in. The Q menu changes accordingly, as does the main menu. If you hate video modes, you can kind of just ignore them. But if, like us, you want quick access to different options dedicated to video, then they're right there, not buried in a massive shared menu. To the right of this is your exposure compensation dial, and in front of this is a custom button which is set to turn face detection on and off out of the box in both stills and movie mode, but can be changed to a number of options in the main menu. In front of this is your shutter button, which sits on top of the on-off switch. Personally, I'd like the on-off switch to have a slightly bigger switch, as I do like to turn my camera off in between use and I found it a bit fiddly. To the back of the camera, you have a series of standard buttons, a menu and menu buttons around it, and everything you'd expect from a modern camera. The Q button sits to the top right, and as I've mentioned, shows different options depending which mode you're in. Selecting these can be done with the buttons around the menu button or using the touchscreen on the LCD display. The LCD display is a three-way tilt as opposed to a fully articulating screen. The X-T4 moved away from this design, but now with the X-H2 ticking this box, the X-T5 reverts to the more traditional design. This is a great feeling and looking screen. It feels really robust, and the three-way tilt allows you to get both portrait and landscape photos at awkward angles. Of course, you won't be taking any selfies or vlogging with this camera, but there's probably enough of that going on anyway. There's two control wheels, or command wheels as Fujifilm call them, front and back for changing settings such as ISO, shutter speed, etc. These can be set up as you wish in the menu. You can even change the direction that they operate. On the front you have another customizable button, and on the bottom right, as you look front on, is the focus option switch. Choose from manual, continuous or single shot AF. On the side of the viewfinder is a view mode button. You can use this to choose whether you use the LCD, EVF or a mixture of both, and the diopter adjustment to the other side adjusts from approximately -5 to roughly +3 and clicks into place much like a watch winder, so you can't accidentally change it. On top is a hot shoe for Fujifilm or other compatible third-party flashes and accessories. I don't know just now whether a grip will be available. I've not got it listed in the information I have, but previously both battery and metal hand grips have been available, and I would imagine these would be as well. I just don't know right now. On the side of the camera, there are the standard ports you'd expect, including a 3.5mm mic input, remote USB-C, which is also able to be used for charging the camera, micro HDMI out, as opposed to full HDMI on the X-H2 and S, and dual UHS-2 SD card slots on the other side. Just like the X-H2 and the X-H2S, the X-T5 uses the NP-W235 battery, so X-T3 users, you're going to need to invest in new spares, but X-T4 users, you're all set. Don't be disappointed though, the W235 battery brings with it extended performance, and I'm sure that along with the more efficient processing power we've seen in the X-H2 and X-H2S, that this will prove to be a long-lasting battery. Fujifilm claim it will give you around 680 frames from a single charge. Of course, actual usage will vary depending on conditions, but just like the X-H2 models, I found the battery life to be excellent. The body is weather resistant. I don't know how much, Fujifilm don't quantify this, but I'd expect with a WL lens that you'd be able to withstand a bit of rain without worrying. The X-T5 features the same sensor shift mode found in the X-H2, previously only found in GFX series medium format cameras. This pixel shift multi-shot mode works by taking 20 individual images, shifting the sensor by 0.5 pixels between each frame. This feature utilises the camera's IBIS system to precisely shift the sensor, automatically recording 20 separate frames with one press of the shutter release. The resulting files can be combined using Fujifilm's Pixel Shift Combiner software to quadruple the camera's resolution and produce detailed 160 megapixel files. You use a tripod for this mode, and remember that it's best suited for still subjects. It's perfect for architecture, archival use, even macro. But fair warning, I did not like this software. I found it very unintuitive. But it is free and it works, and if you need this feature, it's there and it's impressive. I'd much prefer to see it made into one image in camera. It would make my post-production workflow a lot easier, but that's just how it is. Also found in the X-T5 and the X-H2 are the digital teleconverter modes. These allow you to simulate a 1.4 or 2 times teleconverter in camera, utilising that massive 40 megapixel resolution to crop into the image. Of course, you don't have to use these, you can crop in post. The detailed and large images you get from this camera means there's loads of room to play around afterwards if you didn't quite nail your composition in the field. There's also an interval timer built in for time-lapse shooting. I found this very easy to use, although I've not done a time-lapse before now. You'll see that I tried to capture the partial solar eclipse last week, but I've not done this before. I only made the decision 2 minutes before it started. It turns out I'm not very good at photographing the sun, so my results aren't exactly brilliant, but you can see how well the interval shooting works at the very least. Of course, Fujifilm are known for their colour technology, and the colours this camera produces are just gorgeous. I love the standard ProView film profile that's set by default. It's just so gorgeous, but it still retains a natural result. It means editing isn't always a requirement, and I like things that speed up my workflow. Just like other Fujifilm cameras, this features the film simulation modes and introduces the new nostalgic negative film sim as well. This is an amber tinted highlight with rich shadow tone for a printed photo look, apparently. You'll remember from the X-H2 video that you can bracket up to 3 film simulations, so you can try out a few at once as well. And that's the X-T5. It's a little bit of the X-T3, some of the X-T4, a lot of the X-H2, and I really like it. I think X-T users are going to love it, and I think it's been worth the wait. I think that Fujifilm have really found their perfect product lineup. Yes, I know it seems overwhelming if you don't know what each one does, but the X-H2S, the X-H2 and the X-T5 all have their own little niche and will appeal to different photographers. And since the X-T4 and the X-H1, they've really perfected where each camera sits and what they do and who they're for, and they do it really, really well. There's no perfect camera out there for everyone. Every product release, somebody will find a fault with something. This will be the same. The screen, the viewfinder, the sensor. You can't have it all. But I think with this new lineup of flagship X series cameras, you can certainly more easily find a camera that suits your style and your needs. In a nutshell, but you'll know by now it's not so simple, X-H2S, speed and video, professionals in mind. X-H2, high resolution, DSLR or more traditional mirrorless handling for hybrid creators who shoot both stills and video. X-T5, traditional film camera handling in a smaller, lighter body designed with stills first photographers and enthusiasts in mind, but with powerful video for hybrid shooters who like this form factor. Predominantly stills photographers who want the traditional handling in a compact and lightweight body are definitely going to gravitate towards the X-T5. Existing X-T users will be delighted with the form factor and controls this camera has to offer, especially when combined with that brilliant new 40 megapixel sensor and the new processor. However, hybrid shooters who want this smaller, lighter form, along with the quick and easy to change dials on the top, will still love this camera. And this is no doubt going to appeal to wedding photographers who look to shoot both high resolution stills and snippets of video. If you want traditional handling on a more stills based all-round performer, then the X-T5 is definitely one you need to consider. If you want the high resolving power that comes with the X-T5, but prefer the more DSLR or modern mirrorless handling that you might find in a Canon or Sony and you might be used to, look towards the X-H2. For super fast sports and wildlife and more dedicated video users, the X-H2S is the one for you. Me? You know, I thought I was going to hate the X-T5 with its dials. It's not my style, but it's won me over. Having said that, my personal preference, I think I would go with the X-H2. I prefer the form and the handling and the fully articulating screen, but the X-T5 has done a really good job of winning me over. And you know, those top dials aren't only lovely to look at, but they're really rather useful as well. What do you think? Will you be buying the X-H2 or the X-T5? Have Fujifilm hit the nail on the head? There's been a lot of exciting new releases lately from Fujifilm, Sony, Canon and OM System, so it's a great time to be considering an upgrade. But which one is calling your name? Let us know in the comments. We try our very best to reply to every single one. And of course, please don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you very soon.